Welcome back, everyone, to High Kicks and Armbars, and welcome back, CJ, to Japan. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back.
How was your trip back home? First time back in how many years?
Since the pandemic, so it was like my first time back in roughly 2.5 years. It was nice actually because when I was there, I didn't really have really great internet reception, and
Mm.
so it kind of forced me to unplug, which was actually very nice. Just talking with friends I hadn't seen in a while, family members, and no idea what's going on around the world around me. So it's kind of nice, like a vacation from the world.
Missed the circus that was Super Rising 38.
I actually did buy Rising 38 on Fight Pass because I think it was like $15 or something insanely cheap. And I watched Rising 38, and then I just kind of caught up on Super Rising afterwards, but I did not watch that live.
All right, let's get things kicked off in the world of J-Kick. Target Shibuya. Some of you might know the gym, some of you might not, but it is home to one of Rise's most charismatic and up-and-coming superstars, Ya-Man. The king of Street Fight has had a meteoric rise in popularity over the past 12 months, thanks to his fan-friendly style inside the ring and his crazy pre-fight antics outside of it. But he's not the only member of Target Shibuya who's been getting attention recently. For today's show, we invited Patrick from BeyondKick.com to delve further into Target Shibuya's recent success. Pat, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to have you on the
Tired
show,
after
man.
watching Glory yesterday, but yeah, thanks for having me.
How was that?
It was an experience. It was one that I might have been able to do without, but yeah, it was cool seeing Overeem in 2022 kickboxing again.
But we're not here to talk about Glory today. We're here to talk about you and your particular association with two certain fighters. Before we get into those particular fighters, could you just give us a quick summary of, I guess, your kind of backgrounds? Give us a quick background of your time in Japan.
Oh, yeah. So I went to Japan in 2019 to study Japanese at the Tokai University. And while I was there, I trained a little bit of kickboxing before in Oslo, and I wanted to continue doing it over there. So I found a kickboxing club, and they were doing like this open workout kind of thing in the start in the new semester. They had like a fitness group and a competition group. So I went there, and they asked me, "Hey, have you trained before?" I said yes. So they just put me in the competition group, and I didn't really know it. And turns out it was just chock full of amateurs and people who were were wanting to go pro, basically. And that's how I met Ya-Man and Hyuma. So at that point, Ya-Man had already graduated, so he was gone. He just visited to train. And Hyuma was in his last year, so he was not at every training because they're kind of busy when they're about to graduate. But yeah, they were pretty frequently there.
So how was your, I guess, experience training under Ya-Man and Hyuma?
It was different because everyone else was training at Target Shibuya except for me. So basically, the training we had at the university was just 3 rounds of shadow boxing, 3 rounds of mitts, and then an endless amount of sparring. So we were doing like 10, 15 rounds twice a week. And the way they do it over there is like, it's pretty light. They call it mas. And essentially, they're not really hitting each other. It's almost like they're just marking it in the air. So it's different from what I was used to over here, for sure.
Is Target Shibuya where Daiki coaches now?
Yeah. That's where Daiki coaches.
Okay,
He's
yeah.
the head coach, and he runs the Target Shibuya branch by himself, I think.
Was he the coach? I guess he would have retired by 2019. So was he the coach in 2019?
Yeah, so he was the coach for Target Shibuya. So it's kind of funny because I saw him on the Terrace House, the reality show, before I went to Japan.
Oh, really?
And I had no idea those guys at Tokai University were actually affiliated with Target Shibuya. So the first time I met Daiki was at an event, and I just saw the guy in the elevator. It's like, well, this guy looks kind of familiar.
Well, that's hilarious because I remember when he opened that gym. Because I remember when he retired, it made me feel old now. I remember going to a Rise show where he fought on it, and Erika Kamimura and him, they all trained at a Target gym, but I think it was like in Gotanda or something. It wasn't in Shibuya yet. So that's interesting. It's funny. I didn't realize you went to Tokai because Tokai is like a huge sports university. They have a really good judo team as well.
Yeah, I lived next to the judo gym over there, the dojo. and it's just full of athletes, and almost everyone is aiming for the Olympics. It's wild.
That's pretty cool. What was it like going to like a sports university like that?
So I went to another university before, and it was just full of skinny Japanese guys. And then I go to Tokai, and it's just full of like these really hunky, big muscle dudes. It's wild. The rugby team is also insane there. So yeah, the rugby team and the judo guys are just like look like bodybuilders almost. It's crazy.
Just surrounded by a bunch of monsters everywhere you went.
Essentially, yeah.
It's really cool. It's a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, it was, and I'm happy I stumbled into the kickboxing club too. There's not really any foreigners there, so just me. So it was a good experience just to learn Japanese, but also just get into Japanese kickboxing.
There's a question. So how was it for you to integrate with everyone?
It was a bit awkward at first because
How was your Japanese at that point?
my Japanese was pretty good, but they were pretty scared of not being able to communicate properly with me. So I think it was more awkward from their side than mine.
In regards to Hyuma Itachi,
Yeah.
it has been quite the year for the lads. Beginning in January, right hook KO of Taisei Iwago, sending him face first in the canvas. April, Rise Eldorado. I was lucky to attend and see him overwhelm fellow 60-kilogram contender Yasaku Ishizuki. And then the biggest one of all, coming a couple of weeks ago, in September 17th, goes all the way to shoot boxing and takes out 60-kilogram ace, the highly regarded Yuki Kasahara. Give us a kind of quick rundown of that fight, because that's an incredibly impressive win, especially with Kasahara's recent wins in Tokyo Dome and his recent rising appearance, I should say.
Yeah, so the Kasahara fight was actually kind of wild for him. It's he hadn't fought a southpaw in quite a long time. So he actually told me that this was a fight where he'd like to actually prove to himself and others that he'd basically overcome his weakness, because until then he had one loss and one draw to southpaw, so he hadn't really looked good. So he finally got the chance to do it, and it was a great fight. Show the best at 60, and like you said, he's coming off a win at the match against Chihiro Nakajima.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty even fight, and then in round one, they just basically it's a war from the start. Hyuma gets hit by a flying knee, pops right back up, told me he wasn't hurt. We told it hurt, but he didn't get rocked.
He was downed by a flying knee?
Well, it wasn't just the down. So I think a lot of people watching were like thinking that's a down, but the ref didn't agree. And yeah, I don't know. He told me he didn't get even flash knocked down, but he did said it hurt like hell. So I'm not sure if that's a fighter thing to say or if it's actually true, but I'm going to go with what he said. Yeah, so they just keep going after that, and they actually trade again, and both fall down. And this time, Huma's glove also touched the ground. So people again are like, why isn't this a down? But they both seem to pop right back up after that as well.
Maybe like taking a step back a bit, he beats I don't know where Ishizuki ranked in April, second or third at least.
Oh yeah, he should have been second, I think.
So to go to shoot boxing, I mean, do you know how Hyuma, like when he was given that offer, like what was his thoughts initially?
So ever after he actually beat Taisei Iwago with the knockout, he told me like he was expecting a title shot, and it seemed to me as if he was going to get it, but it just never came. So when he got Ishizuki, it was just a good fight for him to get. And after that one, he was calling out. Actually, he wanted to be on the match, so he started calling out Pettis, Egawa, Oiwa, and Asais actually. But he obviously didn't get put on the card, and then he went out and called out Taiga Genji and Yuki Kasahara.
I was going to ask this later, but seeing as you brought it up, he unfortunately wasn't on the Tokyo Dome. Is there a particular opponent, any of the guys you mentioned there, or somebody else, a match-like bout you would like to see him against, a crossover bout?
Well, at this point, I'd be lying if I say I didn't want to see him against Leona Pettis. That'd be a great fight. But I also think watching him against a guy like Yuki Egawa would be insane as well, considering the style matchup.
He's kind of been one of those guys who've been under the radar in Rise, which is unfortunate. Just with everything that's gone on this year, And just with the finishes he's had, the performances just feel like, and I mean, obviously, you know the guy, and so I feel it's another incentive to root for the guy. But even put that aside, it's just incredible run of form recently.
Yeah, it has. There's actually like he was supposed to be on Rising 23 as well at a point in time. But he broke his hand, so he couldn't actually get it. I think everything was in place as well. It was just about to get announced, and then he broke his hand.
Surely a title fight is next run. Would you think?
Yeah, I can't imagine anything else unless it's a fun matchup for a big card. He just has to get a title shot at this point. He's been calling out for it for a long time, like ever since he won against Sato, I think, in 2021. He's been calling for it, and I think he's deserved it since.
Although 60 kilogram champ Chang Hyung Lee is actually, so he's going to fight this upcoming Saturday against Kan Nakamura at 62.5 kilograms. I've maybe heard like a couple of murmurs that maybe that's an indication he might not stick at 60 kilogram. I'm not sure. If Lee let's just go in a situation where Lee vacates the belt. Who would you want to see Hyuma go up against?
Yeah, I think if Lee vacates the belt, the only match that makes sense is actually Kazuma, even though he's coming off a KO loss. But yeah, he's the previous champ. He had a good showing against Lee as well. So, and he's also the only top guy that he hasn't beat or fought yet. So,
no Taiga.
Taiga is Taiga. It would be cool. It would be a cool match, especially if he wins next weekend. That'd be also a great fight.
That's the other 60 kilogram bout on October 15th. I only really mentioned Taiga's name because I don't think he's, as much as I love Taiga, I don't think not justified in getting a title shot, but he has been pushing for it on social media, and there is name value there. So I could see Rise maybe going for it, but I mean,
he's calling out for a fight on the December World Series card. And if Lee isn't ready or he vacates, then that might actually be an option depending on how Taiga does this weekend.
So also on the upcoming Rise World Series card in Tokyo, we have everyone's favorite, Ya-Man. Now, Patrick, I remember when I first stumbled across the Beyond Kick Discord, and I remember immediately seeing you hyping up Ya-Man. the Ya-Man train was full steam, and I just caught it just before the Kan Nakamura fight in Osaka, and I thought, all right, because I was going to the show, and I thought, all right, it'd be cool to root for this guy because I was aware of Ya-Man before, like his previous knockout win on the previous World Series before the Kan Nakamura fight. So I was like, okay, it'd be cool to root for this guy that Patrick knows, and I'll see where this train leads. And it's been quite the journey. The insane brawl with Khan, beating Koji on New Year's Eve, another crazy fight against Sumiya Ito, and then on the biggest stage, the Tokyo Dome, destroying Catfish Yusei Ashizawa in one round. And throughout this whole time, Ya-Man has essentially become a star through these fights and through his appearances via social media and alongside the likes of Mikura Asakura. Did you think this journey would get this far, up to this point?
I gotta admit that despite being pretty optimistic about my guys, Ya-Man was actually just 2-1 when I met him, and Hyuma was 1-2 record-wise. So neither of them were really deep in their careers. They were pretty new and wasn't looking too good. But yeah, they really took off, and especially Ya-Man. After 2021 and the open glove thing, he just exploded. He was actually going to retire too after the Taishi Hiratsuka loss. So it's quite a turnaround for him. Yeah, just going from thinking about retirement to becoming a star, basically.
Well, I just think it's kind of funny because when I was introduced to Ya-Man, I don't think he was introduced that seriously. If that, not to be too offensive, he's just kind of this really violent fighter that would take punches to give punches. And through these recent wins, and I think his appearance on Breaking Down as like one of the commentators and kind of his association with Mikuru has really skyrocketed his fame. I was surprised because just today I was looking at the Abima Kakutogi YouTube channel, and their videos don't generate a lot of views, But they had a video of his from a couple days ago that had close to 400,000 views already, which was in stark contrast to all the other videos that I could see on the channel. So, I mean, his profile's never been higher. And I think it's actually really surprising. I would not have expected 2 years ago for him to be as popular as he is now.
Obviously, with tension away, some have pointed to Ya-Man as the new flag bearer of Rise.
I think at this point he kind of is the interim flag bearer. I guess doesn't get much better for them. I think he's by far their biggest current star, just by how much they're promoting him.
Hmm.
I think the only problem with this is that with his style, he might just figure out how to lose the next fight. So,
Well, let's talk about the next fight because all this makes the upcoming bout with Taiji Shiratori very intriguing because Shiratori himself was considered the next star of Rise, be it with his connection with Tenshin, obviously training at Teppen Gym, winning the World Series tournament in 2019, I believe. But the last few years, he's really kind of faltered, especially in crucial fights.
yeah, it's kind of weird because I think he looks great in most of his fights,
Mm-hmm.
but he also looks great until he gets knocked out in a lot of them.
When he gets cracked, I think, yeah, I think that was maybe first demonstrated with the first Tiger fight way back in 2019 in Osaka. He was winning that very comfortably, and then suddenly he wasn't, and then suddenly he was very much in the back foot.
I remember in 2020, back when they were talking about Tenshin leading the sport, and they kind of did that tournament to be like, who's the next Tenshin? And I think he lost to Naoki with a cut. If I remember, I went to that event, and it seemed very much to me that all of the promotion was assuming that he was going to win this and he is going to be the new Tenshin kind of thing. Because he kind of has the look that they're looking for. Like he'll get a lot of female fans, which Japanese kickboxing notoriously depends on female fans to build their stars. And it seemed like they were building him for that. And then after that, it just all fell apart for him. And he's been able to get a couple wins, but he hasn't looked nearly as dominant as he did before that. And I think that Rise has been a lot more hesitant to throw their promotional power behind him now. And I think they're looking for someone like Ya-Man instead.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, especially the one with them looking to maybe give Ya-Man some extra hype by just giving him Taiju. For them, I think if Ya-Man loses, it's not the worst for them. If Taiju wins, it just boosts him. Ya-Man loses, he's still Ya-Man. He still puts on great fights.
If Ya-Man absolutely smokes him, that's 2 KO losses in a row. Maybe he needs to take a little time off to let some injuries heal and maybe let the brain recover. If it's like a super close fight, I don't think it damages him as much as if he just gets blasted, which is possible against Ya-Man. So
the build to this fight, the hype for this fight has been really well done. Like all started at the Osaka show. Now, maybe Patrick, do you want to? Because your Japanese is much better than mine. How like if you were to like sum up Ya-Man's kind of promo and the kind of like the main story to this feud, how would you describe it? I guess
it's interesting because it actually goes quite back. It actually started because he's been doing this with Ashisawa as well, just saying, please, I don't want to fight this guy. We all know how it's gonna go. So he's been saying that about Taiju for at least a year or two, I think. And on his YouTube channel, he has this video where he's asking out his childhood crush, and she says, "Well, I don't like your face, but I think Taiju Shiratori, he's a handsome, cool guy." So I think that planted the seed for this fight, really.
So yeah, in the Osaka show, he basically called out. It just said, "I fucking hate handsome guys. I'm gonna kill Taiju Shiratori."
Well, I think Taiji did pretty well. He seemed to be pretty open to it, just going back and forth. Him saying he's gonna punch Ya-Man and turn him into a handsome Taiman is pretty good. I like that one.
And to top it all off, I think it was yesterday or Friday. Abema. Well, I saw this via Taiju's Twitter page, but Abema, they put together this wonderful little trailer for the show. It's Taiju looking as handsome as can be, and then you got Ya-Man. It's a bit closer, but at first thing looking all intimidating. And then it's this like the big head, small body effect, and there's like multiple Yamans. He's on Taiju's shoulders. Taiju like kind of like doesn't punch him, he kind of flicks him in the face, and then just Yaman turns into this white dude, this really handsome white dude. Is like,
I'm enjoying watching you try to describe
I
it.
can't even describe it. When I saw it on the, I mean, I'm doing a terrible job describing it, but it's just absurd, and I can only hope that this gets more interest in the fight. So yeah, the clash of styles makes it intriguing. How, I guess, question to both of you, how do you see this fight kind of panning out?
I just basically think what Taiju is going to be trying to keep Yaman off of him, use his jab to try to keep him off, and Yaman's going to try to be all over him all the time. And I think based off his past recent performances that Yaman's eventually going to get to Taiju. Like he's eventually going to push him into a corner or the ropes and unload on him. And Taiju hasn't responded that well to that recently. And so I think it's a tough matchup for him.
What say you, Patrick?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's how it's going to be.
Is that what you like? Your heart says, or what is that? What your mind says as well?
It's what both my heart and mind says. Yeah, I've seen him practice against Hyuma, and Huma's been spending a lot of time just backed up against the rope, and they've just been trading there. And Yaman's looked good doing it. Of course, Hyuma isn't as tall as Taiju, but still, I think he should be able to pull that off unless he gets dropped coming in.
Just like a question that popped in my mind is there an equivalent to Taiju? Like, has Yaman faced someone with maybe a similar reach, or?
Not sure. I mean, he's been spending a lot of time with Mikuru Asakura lately, but I'm not really sure how tall he is in comparison to Taiju.
I can see from a lot of this fight, Taiju keeping Yaman at bay. It doesn't. I don't have the confidence that Taiju can keep him away for long, or for a full 9 minutes. I'd say. I don't know. I would think that eventually Yaman will figure out the distance at some point, and then corner Taiju, and get him in trouble.
Yeah, and Yaman looks huge at this point. I think he's bigger than ever since he started training MMA.
And like he definitely has the power that matches a Konga Power or whatnot. So he can definitely knock Taiju down. I have no doubts about that. So just whether he can get to that point to be able to do so. Just quickly, the upcoming Rise World Series. Any other bouts that are capturing your attention, Patrick?
We mentioned before, but the Khan versus Lee fight is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's curious how Khan does here.
Yeah, I think he should take this pretty easily. He should be bigger and faster, and obviously he's pretty good considering his last performances. So,
and as we mentioned, Lee is coming up from 60 kilograms. So it's just always interesting with Khan though, because it feels like I think as many have said, he just throws everything into his offense, into every punch, which catches up to him eventually in the second and third, and he gets really tired. But I mean, I am desperate in need for a new Osaka draw, so I am all on for Khan to try and win this thing.
Interesting to see what Taiga does. I mean, that should be kind of interesting as well. Just because he's so up and down recently. It's like he wins every fight he should lose and loses the fights he should win. So it's kind of fun to follow.
Everyone has been really impressed with Ryu Hanaoka. And he recently came off a win over Jim Mandokuro. He's actually beaten 3. Am I right? He's beaten 3 opponents that were in the 53 kilogram tournament last year. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
That's insane. He would have won the Grand Prix. He would have won the tournament. Yeah, he beat Ishii. He beat Kodai, I believe that's it, and then he beat Jin. I really highly recommend people keep an eye on Hanaoka. I think he's someone to watch out for. I didn't actually include it on here, but my Kazani's also on the card as well. Hold on.
Yeah, he's headlining it.
Yeah. So that's gonna be the headline. Yes, I just realized, like, oh shit, I didn't actually mention Kazani, but that should be going. Kazuki Osaki versus Kazani.
Yeah, that should be a good one too, actually.
Yeah. Kazuki Osaki, Beyond Kick number 9 ranked on the Beyond Kick pound for pound list. So let's see. We'll see if the curse continues, I guess, because I feel like everyone that Yod puts on like that around that number 8, number 9 like slot loses like not long after. and then gets replaced and then rinse and repeat. So we shall see.
What do you guys think about Ya-Man going to MMA?
I feel like Japan is the type of place where they could give him fights to help him develop as an MMA fighter, if that's what he wanted to do. Because there's enough kickboxers converted to MMA recently that, like Bay Noah and fighters like that, and Ren Hitamoto, they could give him fights. The problem is, and always has been, Japan doesn't really have like an intermediate level. It's like you're either a beginner or a world-class fighter.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be hard for him to progress past that. Once he started reaching the grapplers who have been doing judo since they were 3, I think he'd have a hard time.
I would love to see Rising. Like, I feel like Trigger or Landmark, whatever they're called now, should be like the home of a Ya-Man like figure.
We'll see.
Or as like a Kotomura, Hagiwara, just like fighting similar level opponents. Like,
so I was trying to get to earlier about Landmark, is Landmark could have been this cool, almost like outsider-esque, entertainment-based, more entertainment-focused series they were doing.
yeah.
But now they've just turned it into their old Trigger series. But it would have been perfect for fighters like Hiramoto and Ya-Man, like you're saying, because it would have been like this fishbowl that they would have lived in. I mean, you could have Ya-Man fight Ren Hiramoto or someone like that in an MMA fight, and it would seem okay in that environment.
One of the things I mentioned before is that I've really enjoyed. I really rate Rise's booking of Ya-Man with these open finger gloves, the types of opponents he's fighting. I would not feel confident in the hands of Rising, to be honest, especially how we've seen them, like the Hagiwara fights. I don't know. Beno against Takeda is like, ugh.
But Beno did good in that fight. He almost knocked him out.
But I that early on though in his career, I think he just I don't know in his MMA run.
I will briefly defend Rising, and that I don't know how much of that is Rising's fault and fighters like Hagiwara not knowing how to not accept fights. Because and Ren Hitamoto, I feel like they have this false confidence where they're thinking, if I can get a big win over this big fighter, it erases all of the losses up till now. Because MMA is always, what have you done for me recently kind of sport. And the problem is they just keep losing those fights. So it's not going well for them.
Very, very quickly, quick review of the recent K1. Well, it's not so recent anymore, but quick review over K1 Yokohama Matsuri. Patrick, you caught the show?
Oh yeah, I did. Woke up early, caught the entire thing. I'd say it was worth it. It was a good show.
And what fight stood out to you, or any performances particularly that stood out to you?
I mean, Kaneko looked incredible. I'm not sure if it's actually him being insane or just an easy opponent. The guy's record was apparently good from the UK. He was a name over there, but yeah, clearly not on the K1 or international level.
Yeah, just for me, and I think for others as well, just Pettis's run was took you through like a wide variety of emotions, because we thought early on, like it was the end of the first round, like, oh, he's gonna fuck it up. It's like, because he got knocked down, pulled it back. That flying knee KO of Oiwa, insane. The way he did it, just kind of faked with, I think he faked it with a hook, and then just like Oiwa was open, just flew in with the knee. Nuts.
I was just happy, like you are, that Pettis won, because prior to the event, Dogman got me like emotionally invested in his future. And so I was just happy to see him win, because normally when I get invested in a fighter, they get destroyed afterwards and are never the same. So yeah, you sent me a couple of the links. I think I was at a Deep Jewels show while you were at the K1 show. So you were giving me some commentary while it was happening.
I have to publicly apologize to CJ here, because I was going to meet we met him at a bar late on in near Yokohama Station, but it was around about 9:30 or so, because I don't know, K1 just have a tendency to run these ridiculously unnecessary long shows. So I appreciate
it. Was fine. I got to talk to a weird cultist outside of the station for a while.
Oh, you didn't tell me about this?
Oh,
all right. You know what? Scrap Yokohama Matsuri. Tell us a little bit, just very quickly, tell us about this.
So like there's that circular elevated walkway that they had. They like you went upstairs to kind of go over that giant intersection. There was all these people handing out flyers for the same cult, and they were trying to get me to like donate money, and they were talking to me. And normally I don't get approached by people with the pamphlets, but these people very enthusiastically approached me, which made me nervous because it was like 9 o'clock at night. I was like the only person up there. But yeah, then she got mad, and then I got lost, and I kept walking past her repeatedly, and just made it more awkward that I was constantly going by the cultist.
How the fuck do I segue from that? It's very. Let's go over. I guess we'll kind of get this over done. Super Rising and Rising 38. Patrick, you saw the show?
Yeah, I did.
Well, I mean, me and CJ kind of went to great lengths to not watch it. I went to Osaka to watch Deep Kick. CJ fled the country, so although to be fair, CJ, you ended up seeing it. Then you saw 38, I believe. And
saw 38. I went to great lengths to avoid Super Rising.
Well, let's start, of course, with the main. I guess the main talking point: Floyd Mikuru exhibition. Mikuru did decently, I guess, until Floyd decided, okay, I'm going to end this now.
I think Mikuru looked as good as Mayweather was going to let him look before he decided to knock him out and finish it.
Well, hey, they've now got that highlight reel. I forget what he hit him with, but the one that got Floyd that snapped his head back. They can use that for every VTR till the end of time. It's much better than the one they had with Tension. The one where he kind of brushes or grazes Floyd, where you'd have to get the technology from Blade Runner to see if it actually made any contact.
I'll say that Tension got embarrassed by Mayweather. I would not say that Mikuru got embarrassed by him. And Mikuru comes out of the fight with Mayweather much better than Tension did. If anything, it elevates him way more than I think it elevated Tension at the time. And then the crying didn't help all of the crying from Tension.
But everyone cries in JMA J-Kick.
As long as Mikuru doesn't start dating Kana Asakura and then cheat on her with a round girl, I think he comes out on top.
Patrick, how did you take the fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's like CJ said. I think it's a pretty accurate way to say it. But I actually think at a certain point, I actually believe that Mikuru might do it. He got me believing that far. I'm not sure if I got caught up in the hype or what it was, but I actually thought that he might have a chance, actually.
See, that's the magic. That's the magic that like Conor McGregor had for the Mayweather fight, where Conor McGregor was so insane that like there was this weird thought in the back of our heads that was like, he might actually do this. And Mayweather had that as well. But Tension to me never had that. For some reason. But Mayweather was just like, I don't know if it's just like he's such like a tough street guy and he's bigger than Tension. They're like, he might, maybe there's a small chance. Yeah, I agree completely.
Anything else from? I don't really want to give Super Rising too much.
What do you guys think?
Koji beating his bodyguard. That was a moment.
Do you think that bodyguard's going to have a job after that? I saw the Rising confession video of Floyd Mayweather watching it and just laughing. So.
Oh yeah, and the tweet that Jack also put up. Yeah, he just looked around and then just like smirked and just got his hand tapes.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm happy. We'll probably get another Osaka show here with Koji headlining at some point. Probably another boxing exhibition. The Kansai market is saved. It's on life support, but it's
hey, you guys got Hagiwara. Hagiwara's your hero now. It's choked out by a kickboxer at Rising 38.
Yeah.
I think they brought Koji on as a smart move because there was rumors that the ticket sales weren't going as well as they were hoping. And I think they brought Koji on. I think the original idea was to have Ren Hitamoto come on, and that's why he was in Hawaii. But I think something happened where Ren Hitamoto wasn't able to fight at this event. And so then they brought Koji on because Koji has that book filled with thousands of fans that'll buy any ticket to any show he's a part of. And I think it helped them sell out the rest of the Tokyo Dome. Not Tokyo Dome, Saitama Super Arena. I don't want to get like a million messages that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Very quickly, I guess, with Rising 38, Kyoji Kintaro.
That initial scare was real for me.
Felt pretty terrible. Felt like I was watching him fight Pettis again, essentially.
So
I was thinking, wow, this is really it?
No, that was nuts. I mean, did you feel that, CJ? Do you think, oh my God, Kintaro is actually going to do it? What am I watching?
For that brief second, totally. I thought he hit him really good. And recently, people have kind of been preparing for Kyoji's kind of karate dash-in style with, I need to hit him coming in. And he comes in so quickly that even if you just graze him, it's going to be such a damaging blow because he's running right into it, that I was kind of like, oh shit. But then he recovered, and once it became a grappling match, I knew it was over.
So he comes back, gets a win on his Rising return. No, I guess what's next is a little bit. Well, he seems to want to go to flyweight.
I hope he does.
Where is that going to be though? Because like I haven't watched Bellator in the longest time, but I am under the impression that it might be tricky for them to give him what he wants, give him fights at that weight class. Or am I wrong in that regard?
You're not wrong. I think Bellator doesn't really have that division.
Could they not? Could they not
an idiot? But
well, they have money. They're like, could they not like find like dudes from all over the place?
I would like to think that Bellator has gotten what they wanted out of Horiguchi, and that Horiguchi can come back to Rising now and just fight at a lower division, because I thought he got kind of lucky in the Caldwell fights, and the Caldwell seems to have a very low fight IQ and didn't really use his size to his advantage in those fights.
Or didn't at all.
Yeah, exactly. And that Horiguchi can't compete at a super high level against the top people in that division. Like, he can win one, lose one, win one, but I don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to be a dominant fighter. And to do that, I think he needs to go down to flyweight. It's kind of the same thing that happened with like when Ham Sohee went to the UFC. It's like, yeah, she can't fight 115. She's going to win some fights. She's going to lose some fights, but she's not going to be the champion. For Horiguchi, it's kind of a similar situation where I think flyweight's where he belongs.
You agree with that, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming. He looked great fighting at bantam in Japan, because it's Japan. A lot of them are actually flyweights, in my opinion. But when recently, I think it's seemed to be a big problem for him, especially just getting older, seeming a little bit more chinny, I guess you could say.
They need to get that belt off him, though.
You're obsessed with that. They're not going to take it off of him until someone worthy comes. It's like Thor's hammer. Hey, Amanda Lucas, I'm still waiting for that title defense.
Anything else from Rising 38 that you guys, Doug, want to mention? And do not mention Hagiwara.
The Ogikubo fight was absolutely awesome, and I can't believe that people were underestimating his opponent. It seemed insane to me that he was fighting a former One Championship champion, former Road FC champion, and people were thinking it was like an easy fight for Ogikubo. It was not, and the guy proved it. And I would love to see him back in Rizin and
fighting for the title.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. But I think they would have to sign him to I would hopefully they would sign him to a contract if they do that.
What?
So we don't have past things repeated.
What? No.
But
no.
Outside of that, Siwoo Park, another Korean, looked very good on the card. I mean, she shattered Hamasaki's arm with a kick and dropped her with a punch and looked very good. A real unfortunate passing of the torch for Hamasaki, but a real highlight of Siwoo Park's career.
I did see that, yeah. That was very strong. It's been a very strong run for her.
As the best striker in the female division right now in Rising, she's in a unique position because almost all of her opponents are going to be grapplers. And training at Crazy Bees really allowed her to get that takedown defense that she needed. But outside of that, for some reason, Anastasia, despite losing her last two fights in Rising, still looked good to me.
Yeah,
I would like to see her back. I'd like to see her back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think she seemed like she held her own against Izawa, like the first round especially. Although heartbreak for you, CJ. Your boy lost. Your boy was killed, actually.
What are you referring to?
Fury. Fury.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, first off, I mean, we all knew that the Ohara train had to end somewhere. And if it's going to be to an extremely
revisionist, going to be jumping off the train,
the revisionist history. No, if it's going to be to an uber violent Brazilian, I'm okay with it. Ohara went out the way he would have wanted to go out, and I'm fine with it. Ohara went out like a true warrior. He's incredibly violent, and I think in Japan he benefits a lot from being weirdly tall. And I think Luis was having none of that.
That and the having Green Day as your entrance music in 2022.
Japan's crazy. And maybe Pat can talk about this, but they play the most random music on TV and stuff. Like they still play the theme song from The Rock on TV all the time over here. I'm like, is this from that Nick Cage movie from the 90s? I'm like, all right, I'm into it. So yeah, they play the weirdest music.
It's like they're a decade behind at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like a lot of the like especially the J-Kick fighters have like some really outdated music tastes. I find.
Well, don't all of the Smoker Jim people come out to the same Snoop Dogg song?
Do they? I'm the wrong person to ask about that.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it, but you might be right.
I thought you were all about Hagiwara, your local hero.
Well, just as you've jumped off the Jiri Ohara train, I've jumped off the Smoker's Gym train.
I'm now on the Suzuki train. I got to support him now that his sugar mama's in jail. I feel like I got to be there to help him out. So
I wasn't going to bring this up, but just very quickly, I feel it. Why not? Ren versus Dominator in a cage.
You might have noticed a disgusted noise I made when you said cage.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I feel like I've seen this fight with maybe I'm not giving Ren as much credit here, but I feel I've seen this fight with Dominator and Hagiwara.
I think Ren Hinamoto is the only person whose takedown defense is worse than Hagiwara's.
For some reason I was gonna classify Ren just slightly higher, just slightly above Hagiwara, but it's not saying much.
I mean, Ren probably has a better chance of finishing Dominator on the feet. I think the real game plan for this is the Bay Noah fight, but I think the problem is I think Bay Noah is way more athletic and physically gifted than Hinamoto.
I think as much as it wasn't a great performance by Dominator, I feel people maybe people don't really give Bay Noah's like strength. That's what led to like him able to escape those precarious positions. And
Bay Noah looked great in his Takeda fight. And so Bay Noah, in my opinion, is clearly a better MMA fighter than he is a kickboxer. But I don't think the same can be said about Hinamoto. And I think Shu said he didn't want Hinamoto to take this fight. But I think the issue is that Hinamoto is famous. He's popular. He demands a high paycheck. So can Rising rationalize having him fight a nobody? Like, are they going to find that guy that Yushi fight at the last landmark card for him to fight? Or do they have to put him against someone worthwhile? And I think they're trying to put him against someone worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's the problem with this promotion. Like CJ says, he's a big name. They can't really put him against some nobody. I mean, the way they're doing it with Kota Miura, he seems to be just about as famous, just doesn't have the fight credentials, and that's why they can put him against these, well, basically nobodies, I guess, in the fighting sense, and get away with it. But with Ren, they really can't. So he's getting rough competition, I think.
In between Miura's weekend fights with Buakaw.
Yeah, in between those. I don't see. I mean, I can see Ren hitting Dominator and just putting him out, but I also see him getting taken down by a gust of wind and getting choked out. So
if I was Ren Hinamoto, I would almost be angling hard for like a Suzuki rematch, and just because what Hagiwara showed in the build up to the Suzuki fight is that you can make fun of Suzuki and he doesn't react well to it. So it creates good content. And Ren Hinamoto is all about talking shit to people on Twitter and YouTube. And Suzuki is the easiest target right now because of the potential scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And Hagiwara was like made him look like an idiot in Hawaii. And you got to think that Ren could do the same thing. And I would much rather him take an opponent like that than trying to go up against Dominator, which seems like a bad choice. I guess my question is for you guys, not all kickboxing styles translate well to MMA. And do you think that his style is one of the ones? Because like Krokop, his style translated very well to MMA, which was explosive striking from the outside because it allowed him to avoid the takedowns. Because do you think Ren's style translates well to MMA? Because I have, from the fights I've seen, I haven't been amazed by his striking in his MMA fights.
I don't think the volume and going forward aggressive style translate well at all because it just leaves you open to getting taken down. I mean, the ones that have translated well is like obviously Israel Adesanya, and he's also got that outside counter kind of style. I think that's definitely what translates the best.
I feel like your comment just made me feel so old. I'm over here making a Krokop reference, and you're like, I'll talk about a current fighter who's not retired.
Yeah, when Krokop was a thing, I think I was in elementary school because I remember talking about him too, or my friends talking about him. But that was definitely like when I was 8 or 9.
Patrick, thank you very much for coming to the show today. Anything you would like to plug on your way out?
Just want to shout out my guys from Target Shibuya. It's nice if people keep an eye out for them. It's Hyuma and Ya-Man, of course, and then a couple of new guys coming up. Shohei Ono made his pro debut, lost unfortunately, but there's another guy coming out soon. Daichi actually had a KO win today, so should be going pro pretty soon, and you're probably going to see him in Rice.
And you're on the Beyond Kick team now as a translator.
Yeah, doing some Japanese translations there, and might write a couple of articles if I can find the time.
Brilliant. Really appreciate your time here today, Patrick. It is much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, CJ, before we wrap things up, let's have a look at a little bit of Deep Jewels. We had some fight announcements recently, didn't we?
Yeah. So I'll combine this. I'll also, because it's happening on a Deep event, but it's also a women's MMA bout for the promotion. The exciting announcements kind of recently, the fights that stuck out to me were Saudi Oshima versus Mizuki Furuse, which is happening at Deep, not Deep Jewels, but it is a microweight title bout, which was kind of to be expected because I feel like a lot of people didn't pay a lot of attention to Saudi Oshima's post-fight comments after the Miyu Yamamoto fight.
I remember you talking about this, yeah.
Where she was like, she essentially said, I now realize I'm too small for this division and I would like to go back to microweight. And I kind of felt bad for her because I felt like she was being forced to fight at super atomweight, and she doesn't even cut weight for microweight. And I believe when she weighed in for atomweight, she was always a couple kilos under anyway, and she's like 4'10" or 4'11", so she's absolutely tiny. So it's nice to see her back at microweight. She does hold the Deep and Deep Jewels microweight championship, and Mizuki Furuse is a very popular fighter, but I would have liked to have seen her fight maybe like Aya Murakami at this weight, or see Deep try to get Amp the Rocket back for that matchup. But this makes sense to me because they're trying to sell tickets, and I know that Mizuki sells tickets, and so it makes sense. It just seems a little one-sided.
I was going to say, you seem very under the opinion that this is going to be a squash, a one-sided squash.
Well, I mean, not to do too much MMA math, Kana Asakura absolutely murdered Mizuki Furuse in about less than a minute.
Yeah, this was in 2020, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, Rizin. And Saudi Oshima beat her pretty handedly, even though it was a split decision. I think she dominated that fight for the most part.
Yes.
And Mizuki Furuse, I think, is 9-9 now. And all of her wins are over fighters who aren't very high caliber. But there's not a lot of microweights. I mean, there are a couple, but not a lot of high profile ones. And when you're on a Deep show, that usually, because how do I put this? Just because you fight for Deep Jewels does not mean you'll fight for Deep. There's actually very few female fighters that fight for Deep. And those are people like Shizuka Sugiyama, Shinashi Satoko,
Yes.
So people that Deep really likes, really believes in, you got to be a ticket mover.
Hmm.
And so Saudi Ashima fighting on Deep card is a big sign for her. That shows that maybe she'll be on more Deep cards in the future, and maybe they're kind of putting her on their big shows. So maybe they're trying to push Saudi a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's interesting for her in that regard. But this is all just a very long-winded way of me answering your question of, yes, I do not expect this to be a very competitive bout. And I think Saudi Ashima should easily win.
Does this fill you with confidence that we'll be seeing more of Sao Yoshima in the future, just with everything that went on with her husband and his judo career?
Well, he won. He did quite well in his last tournament. So I think that took some of the pressure off, that he
Mm-hmm.
won't be asked to step down or anytime in the near future.
Mm.
And I think this is a nice fight for her because it allows her to fight someone at her own natural weight, kind of take some of the stress off of him. And it's not a rising show, so there's not as much stress. So I think it'll be a good return to action for her. And maybe it'll highlight the microweight division and we can get that division going again.
So
But
this could be my other question. So as far as if I remember, I can't recall many, if any, microweight bouts in Rising. Is that correct?
none, I believe. I think Rising has only ever had King Reyna, whatever weight she was fighting at. And then they had 125 briefly. I think they've had one strawweight bout, but yeah, they've had nothing lower than super atom weight.
Oh yeah, maybe Rin Nakai, like whenever.
Yeah.
Like,
And Murata Kanako.
Yes,
Murata Kanako.
Early on, you're correct.
And then Kana Watanabe also fought.
Does this move to microweight? Do you see her like? How does this affect her? I guess with Rising, trying to ask.
I don't know, because it seemed like the way Rising used to be was that they didn't really care. If you were a popular, good fighter, you could just fight in Rising, and there wasn't necessarily a championship in the division you were fighting at.
Mm.
I mean, look at Murata Kanako and the other women's fights, King Reina and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it seems like recently, over the past couple of years, Rising's tried to become more of a traditional MMA promotion and have divisions and try to stick to those divisions.
I know they try to have a welterweight division. I mean, yuck.
Yeah. No, but so I don't know if she gets really popular and she already has a fan base. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't bring her back for microweight, but I bet they would rather she came back at super atom weight.
Mm. Especially, after those wins over Kana and Miyu, it would just seem silly not to bring her back. But yeah, and as you've mentioned before, I believe with her family, she's not probably going to be in a rush to fight abroad, or she hasn't really got any ambitions to fight abroad.
Yeah, I've spoken to her about that. She has almost no interest in fighting abroad, just because she knows that logistically it'd probably be nearly impossible for her to take, because she has very young twins. She has her husband. She has a bunch of stuff she has to do. So being able to take off several weeks to go abroad just is impossible for her at this point in time. Which if you think about it, Rising and Deep should embrace a fighter like that, because they know they're not going to jump ship anytime soon.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Outside of that fight on the Deep Jewels, the one fight that they announced that really stuck out to me was Miki Matono versus Moedi Suda.
Yes.
That fight, I believe it's like the co-main event, or it's the second to last fight. But to me, it's the biggest fight on the card. It has the most implications. They both have the most potential. Miki Matono is coming back after taking part in the Abima TV show, where she trained at Syndicate MMA for several weeks. And Miki Matono is a very talented, high-level judo player who went to college with Saudi Oshima and trained with Kana Watanabe at judo. And so she's very good. And unlike Saudi Oshima, she has the frame to fight at these heavier weight classes. It's kind of funny to call atom weight a heavier weight class. She has the frame to fight at super atom weight or even straw weight. And she's taller and probably more physically gifted, to be honest. And Moedi Suda, on the other hand, doesn't have the long martial arts background. but her dad appears to be a very good coach who has helped her form strategies to beat her opponents recently. And she's young, so she's advancing so rapidly between each one of her fights that you never know what she's going to be when she's coming in, because she's just getting so much better and better. But Miki Matono is her biggest test to date. She fought Saudi Oshima and she lost that fight. And I've said it many times, Saudi Oshima, like big sistered her. She just threw her to the ground and outmuscled her. And if Saudi Oshima can do that, it stands to reason that Miki Matono can do that. But Moedi Suda has shown that she's not one to be counted out, and that she will go for nonstop arm bars until she gets one. So she's not one to take lightly either.
And Miki Matono has lost twice to Seiki Izawa, and the second of those was a armbar.
Correct. I always thought the second fight was kind of weird, because if you watch that fight, her leg is heavily taped. And the fight got pushed back, I believe, a month because of a knee injury. And part of me was always like, there's no way your knee recovered in a month. That's probably a more serious injury. And so I thought they kind of rushed the rematch because Deep Jewels, Seiki Izawa was getting kind of hot. They wanted to make her the champion. And so I think they kind of pressured the rematch quicker than it should have happened. But in hindsight, all of Miki Matono's losses, I believe she's lost 3 times, twice to Seiki Izawa and once to someone who now fights at 125 in the UFC. So she's only lost to very good people.
Anything else from Deep Jewels that captures your imagination?
Yeah, so now the fights don't have the same implications or same consequences of the Miki Matono Moedi Suda fight, but as people can probably tell, I'm happy to see Mika Nagano fighting again, just on her own terms, having fun. She's kind of doing what an older fighter should be doing. She's just mid-card, selling tickets, training with younger fighters, helping them get better. And then also on the card, we have Miko Nirvana, who I think is always fun. And she's fighting Nodi, which Team Prajara.
As I was going to say, I thought you were going to lead in with the Team Prajara thing.
They're back. Team Prajara is back, full circle. They're back to Deep Jewels. It's great. But someone made a funny joke in the Discord about how they both have like fake Indian backgrounds, because Miko Nirvana has the whole Buddhism angle and Nodi has the whole I do Indian martial arts that doesn't exist. I remember I had an Indian friend in the kickboxing community who absolutely hated that Team Date claimed to have Indian kickboxing roots because they were all awful. But so it's kind of funny in that regard. But I mean, that should be a fun fight. There's several fun fights on the card, but those are the ones that stick out to me the most.
The other one I quickly want to bring up to you, it's not a fight, it's an exhibition. Kate Lotus is back.
Yeah, and she's fighting Nisei in an exhibition bout on their Okinawa show, which that makes sense because Nisei is popular in Okinawa. She's local. Whenever Rizin comes to town, they put Nisei on their Okinawa cards. I just thought it was weird that it's an exhibition bout. And part of me feels that neither fighter really thought that they could afford a loss at this point in time. Maybe that's why they're making it an exhibition bout. Because Nisei probably wants to keep being called back to Rizin for the Okinawa shows. And Kate Lotus just got a win after so many losses in a row. She probably doesn't want to go back to the loss category. So it's kind of interesting. But I feel like Kate Lotus should have a pretty big size advantage over Nisei going into this fight, because she cut down from so high up. But it'll be interesting. Kate Lotus is trying really hard, but she doesn't have a martial arts background. So the progress isn't as quick as you might hope for.
Great. Thank you very much for that. One last thing I want to discuss this week. So a couple of weeks ago, I went over to Tokyo just a wee weekend trip. And I made a point to visit a certain bakery in Shinjuku. This bakery being owned by former One Championship champion and former King of Pancras, Koji Oishi. Went along there He has the one belt. He has the King of Pancras belt, and like it's cute. It's just like in a wee basket on top of a fridge. And he was super nice. He was very surprised that a Scotsman like knew what Pancras was. No, it was nice, and we bought a couple of things from there, and they're all very delicious and very tasty. And it got me thinking about other. Well, I was going to say like post fight careers, but as you brought up, I've made a very good point that fighters like juggle like various different jobs while trying to maintain a fighting career in Japan. Can you just like off the top of your head, can you think of like the more famous ones, like the more kind of unique ones, I guess?
Yeah, so obviously mine's going to be more leaning towards the ladies because that's what I paid more attention to throughout my time. But I mean, think current Pancrase champion Takayohashi operates a tonkatsu restaurant.
Mm.
And then I think Miki Matono teaches mixed martial arts once a week, and then she also works as a dental hygienist. So I mean, can you imagine? And then like I think Ayaka Hamasaki famously is like a nurse at a massage clinic.
Okay, so this one was made. I was made aware of this via one of the Rising Confessions. Is that still the case?
Yes, so that's kind of an interesting case because if you follow Japanese MMA like to an extreme level, you'll probably notice that sometimes fighters have this sponsor that looks like a cartoon doctor on it. And that is the doctor that Ayaka Hamasaki works for. He is a giant martial arts fan and sponsors a bunch of events.
I had no idea about
and
that.
So Ayaka Hamasaki and her friend Amoeba both work at that clinic because when she started going abroad for fights, obviously most jobs aren't going to allow you to leave weeks at a time to go numerous times a year, but he was very flexible with that. And we think other ones, Emi Fujino. So, you know, the lawyer Horie?
Yes.
That kind of is like the golden sponsor for the Asakura brothers. Well, Emi Fujino like works at his office. So she's like a receptionist at a legal office. Or you have Erika Kamamura, when she was a kickboxer, was a waitress at Denny's. And then you have the Inoue siblings from Toyohashi, where they're from, and they both worked at a 7-Eleven while they were fighting in Japan. So definitely some interesting careers.
I actually read this last night. Apologies if I've already mentioned this before, but I'm actually finally reading the Pride Secret Files book. This was like way back in like 2008. And they have an interview with Tetsuya Kawajiri on there. And I believe he worked in an arcade up until his Bushido debut.
That is
so he would have
terrifying guy to work at an arcade.
He would have been juggling that while being Shuto champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that's hilarious. Yeah, a lot of these guys have jobs. I mean, I think Sugiyama was a teacher, like an elementary school teacher. And so a lot of these people have really interesting, like almost like amazingly normal jobs.
How about
they juggle?
How about post careers? The other one I've heard before is Shoji Akira, the old Mr. Pride back in the day. I think he's opened up a ramen chain in Toyama, I believe. I think the more famous one is Genki Sudo, like the numerous careers that he's had since retirement.
Yeah. Musician, politician, college professor.
Professor.
Yeah, he was taught it. I thought he was at Tokyo University as the head coach for the wrestling team. And I think he might have taught a class there.
I've heard that he taught like I don't know, like a junior baseball team or something like that as well. But I don't know. There's and of course like his stuff with World Order as well.
Yeah. I love their music videos. They crack me up. It's not Japanese MMA at all, but I still think one of the funniest, saddest moments of all time is when Cole Conrad retired from being the Bellator heavyweight champion to become a milk salesman.
I didn't know that was a thing. Really?
Yeah, that's back when, I mean, I'm oversimplifying. He was like a commodities trader, but that was back when Bellator was only doing the tournament format.
Oh yeah.
So it was awful because the champions were only fighting like once a year. And he was like, I'm not making any money doing this. I can't support a family. I have to quit being your champion because fighting once a year isn't enough.
This might be a stupid question, but compared to the States, I mean, how would you say, like, would you say they're more professional fighters here, like having like to juggle jobs compared to the States? Because it is the case. You hear like fighters from the UFC having to say, "Shit, I need a part-time job. I need a job just to pay the bills," and I fight for the leading fight organization in the world.
I think the image in the US is that there's probably more fighters that are able to focus more of their time on their fight career,
Mm,
whether it be through part-time jobs or sponsors or just making enough money fighting.
mm,
Where in Japan, I think there's more of an image that these people actually work full-time jobs.
mm.
They stop their job, they go to practice at 8 o'clock at night,
Yeah,
and then they train till like 11. And those 3 hours are all they train because they have a full-time job. So I feel like there's a very big difference in the amount of training people receive and the type of jobs they're doing.
mm.
But that might just be my perception.
And you've mentioned that I think you mentioned this before, especially with the women's scene, that it's how did you phrase it? It's for a lot of the women competing. Do you say it was like more of like a hobby or like or just
Oh
like
yeah,
is it
so I've tried to find a way to verbalize or communicate this. Never been that successful, but you've been in Japan for a while now.
Hmm.
Most Japanese people I've encountered have like one or two hobbies
Mhm,
that
mhm.
they're really, really into.
Yes.
It's like almost a part-time job for them. It's like, this is what I do for work, and in my free time, I do photography. Or this is what I do, and in my free time, I go mountain climbing.
Mm.
Or this is what I do, and in my free time, I build model trains. I have 7,000 model trains now. Like, they seem to go all in on their hobbies. And I think just because the money generally hasn't been there historically in women's MMA, especially before Rising,
Mm.
for a lot of people, it was just, this is what I do for fun. This isn't a way to make money. And it even goes on today. I think I know a manager who met with a Japanese female fighter recently, and he said he was surprised to find out she had never thought that MMA could be a career.
Mm.
This is just
Mm.
like something that I'm doing because it's fun, but it's never going to be my main focus in my life.
Yeah. Again, it's going back to the Pride's Secret Files book that I'm reading. A lot of the guys, Kawajiri, Aoki, said the exact same before Bushido was a thing. Like I think specifically Aoki and Kawajiri were saying, I am going to stop it. Like Kawajiri simply said, I'm going to stop at 25 if I feel I can't make a living out of this. And then luckily Bushido became a thing, and he was able to like finally like finally for the first time in his life think, wow, I can actually make a living out of mixed martial arts here.
I mean, wasn't
Uh,
Aoki famously a police officer
no, do I
or
remember?
training to be a police officer?
I think he was trained to be a police officer, and I believe he was going to pursue that more had Bushido not been a thing.
It is interesting because a lot of the top Japanese fighters today, even like the Asakura brothers, I mean, how much of their money do you think they generate themselves
Via YouTube
compared to
and
their
stuff.
fight purses?
Oh, it's all pro, especially with Miku. It's all YouTube and all the sponsors and whatnot
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
it's everything he's generated himself. Now, the fighting is what got him to that point,
Mm.
but I think he's then taken it to a level where he no longer has to worry about money.
So before we wrap up, do you have any recommended fights?
I have two recommended fights. So my first one is from Deep Jewels 38. I'm going to recommend the Hime fight where she fought Yuko Kiryu. Now, the event in general kind of lacked finishes. That was my one main criticism. But Hime wants to fight in Rising, and this performance is a very strong statement from her that she should be fighting for Rising. It was absolutely nuts, and I look forward to seeing her fight in the future more now than I had before. And my other recommendation, I hate that I'm doing this because I don't like talking about them too much, but I did enjoy Stamp Fairtex's last fight and one championship. I sent you that link of that elbow she landed, and that was absolutely nasty. And I do love seeing these Thai fighters in MMA now. I think it's kind of a fun addition to the sport.
Let's see. I recommend from the K1 Yokohama Matsuri show that I recently attended, Jumatong's amazing KO of Himalaya Cheetah. I sent you this one, CJ. It's the one where it's the first knockdown is the stop hitting yourself knockdown, where he I don't even know how to describe it, but basically Jumatong like hits Cheetah's glove into Cheetah's own jaw, resulting in a knockdown. It's the most absurd thing. I still can't get over it.
Yeah, that's a pretty embarrassing. Like if they keep replaying it over, that's not one you want to be replayed over and over again.
Jumatong says he wants to win the 70 kilogram, the 67.5 kilogram belts in K1. Give him all the title shots based on this. And that wasn't even the finish. The final knockdown was also pretty badass. So I recommend that. Jumatong Striker Gym versus Himalaya Cheetah from K1 Yokohama Matsuri from this past September. All right, let's wrap it up for this week. You want to plug anything right now?
Yeah, just go to my website, www.sogo-kaku.com. We have, and I'll be uploading on my YouTube channel sometime this week, an interview I did with Chiharu Sawada, who I think is a very exciting prospect. Her younger brother has been competing for one championship for a while. And I always love these fighters that AACC finds who have been competing at like a high level judo or wrestling since they were children. She's been a very high level wrestler for most of her life. And the interesting thing about her, which is why I was interested, is she's kind of this first generation of, she trained at AACC since she was 3. And so while she hasn't been training MMA the whole time, she's been exposed to it. And so it's kind of this new generation. So I'm kind of interested to see how they do. And she's been kicking ass over in Shuto recently. And I kind of expect her to win this whole Infinity League thing.
Great stuff. And for myself, I won't plug anything I have, but Beyond Kick have a website now. And I highly recommend that everyone here gives it a little look. And kudos to Yod and the gang for putting this all together. And I'm excited to see where it leads in the future. All right, let's wrap things up. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time.